Elena Martinez had always been small for her age, even by human standards. At the Galactic Defense Academy on station Kepler 442, she looked like a child among giants. The corridors buzzed with cadets from dozens of species, towering Kralith warriors with their crystalline exoskeletons, sleek Vorthak pilots whose forearms moved with impossible precision, and massive Gorvani engineers whose thick hides could deflect plasma fire. Elena walked through the main hall carrying her datapad, trying not to bump into anyone. A group of Kralith cadets chatted loudly about their latest combat scores, their voices creating harmonious chimes that echoed off the metal walls. She caught fragments of their conversation, scores that made her own performance look pathetic by comparison. Another human, one of them noted as she passed, his translator making his words sound dismissive.
Why do they even bother sending these fragile creatures to military academy?
Elena kept walking. She had heard worse comments during her 8 months at the academy. The admission board had accepted her application, but she sometimes wondered if it was just to fill some diversity quota. Humanity was still considered a minor species in the Galactic Alliance, having joined only 50 years ago. Most other races had been spacefaring for millennia. In her small dormitory room, Elena reviewed the day's assignment. Tomorrow would bring another tactical simulation, another chance to prove herself worthy of remaining at the academy. Her scores were adequate but never exceptional. She performed well enough to avoid dismissal, but never well enough to stand out among her classmates who seemed naturally gifted for warfare. Her roommate, a Vorthak named HFY, entered with graceful movements that made Elena feel clumsy by comparison. HFY's forearms worked independently as she organized her equipment and accessed her study materials simultaneously. Her large, multifaceted eyes could process information at speeds that amazed Elena. "How were your combat drills today?" HFY asked, her translator rendering the clicking sounds of her native language into standard galactic common. "Same as always," Elena replied, closing her datapad. "I managed to avoid getting eliminated in the first 5 minutes this time." HFY's head tilted in what Elena had learned was equivalent to a smile among her species. "Progress is progress. Though I must admit, I do not understand why your species insists on pursuing military careers. Your physiology seems better suited for support roles." Elena had heard this sentiment countless times from well-meaning classmates. Humans were weaker, slower, and less durable than most other species in the Alliance. Their reflexes were adequate but not exceptional. Their lifespans were short compared to most other spacefaring races. On paper, humanity brought little to the military table, but Elena's grandfather had been one of the first humans to serve in the Alliance fleet. He had told her stories about human adaptability, about the way her species could find solutions when others saw only problems. Those stories had inspired her to apply to the academy, despite knowing she would face an uphill battle. The next morning brought news that would change everything. Admiral Korath, the academy's commanding officer, addressed the entire cadet body in the main auditorium. His Gorvani frame dominated the stage as his deep voice rumbled through the speakers. "Cadets, we have received disturbing intelligence about hegemony movement in the Outer Rim territories. Long-range scouts have detected a massive fleet buildup in the Zarian system. This represents the most significant threat to Alliance space in over a century." Elena felt the tension in the auditorium increase. The hegemony was a coalition of aggressive species that had been quiet for decades, building their forces while the Alliance grew complacent. Their last major offensive had cost millions of lives before being repelled. Effective immediately, all combat simulations will be replaced with real tactical scenarios based on current intelligence. Your performance in these exercises will determine not only your graduation prospects, but also your potential deployment, should the situation escalate to actual conflict. Elena's heart sank. Real tactical scenarios meant the Academy would use actual hegemony battle formations and strategies. The simulations would be far more challenging than anything they had faced before. For someone who already struggled to keep up with her classmates, this development felt like a death sentence for her military career. After the assembly, Elena walked to the tactical center where the new simulation parameters were being loaded. The facility contained dozens of individual combat pods where cadets could experience fully immersive battle scenarios. Each pod was equipped with neural interfaces that allowed users to control virtual starships, ground vehicles, or infantry units with thought-based commands. Commander Thexmol, a veteran Kralith officer who supervised tactical training, noticed Elena reviewing the mission briefings. His crystalline features reflected the light from the displays as he approached her station. "Cadet Martinez," he said, his harmonious voice carrying a note of concern, "I have reviewed your performance records. These new scenarios will be significantly more challenging than previous simulations. Perhaps you should consider requesting transfer to the logistics or communications tracks." Elena looked up at the towering commander, feeling the familiar sting of being underestimated. "Sir, I understand your concern, but I believe I can handle the increased difficulty." Thexmol's expression was unreadable behind his crystalline features, but Elena sensed skepticism in his posture. "Very well, Cadet. However, I must warn you that failure in these scenarios may result in immediate dismissal from the Academy. The Alliance cannot afford to waste resources on cadets who cannot meet operational standards." As the commander moved on to speak with other cadets, Elena felt the weight of expectation settle on her shoulders. Around her, classmates from species known for their warrior traditions discussed strategy with confidence. She overheard Kralith cadets debating formation tactics, while Vorthak pilots analyzed enemy fighter capabilities with casual expertise. Elena returned to her quarters that evening with a growing sense of determination. She had come too far to give up now. While her classmates relied on natural advantages like enhanced reflexes or superior strength, she would have to find another way to succeed. Humanity might be physically inferior to other Alliance species, but her grandfather's stories suggested there were other qualities that mattered in warfare. That night, she began studying not just tactics and strategy, but the psychological profiles of hegemony species. If she couldn't outfight them through brute force, perhaps she could outthink them through understanding their motivations and weaknesses. The first advanced tactical simulation began 3 days later. Elena arrived at the combat center early, hoping to familiarize herself with the updated interface systems. The simulation pods had been reconfigured with new neural mapping technology that promised more realistic sensory feedback. Where previous exercises felt like sophisticated games, these would supposedly feel like actual combat. Elena slipped into Pod 47, one of the smaller units designed for species with limited neural complexity. The designation stung, but she had learned to swallow such slights. As the neural interface activated, she felt the familiar tingling sensation as the system mapped her brainwave patterns. The simulation materialized around her. She found herself commanding a small patrol cruiser on the edge of Alliance space. Her mission briefing appeared in her field of vision. Investigate a distress signal from a mining colony in the asteroid belt of the Sigma Draconis system. Intelligence suggested possible hegemony involvement. Around the training center, other cadets were experiencing their own scenarios. Elena could see their pod status indicators on her peripheral display. Corzin Thiel, a Kralith cadet known for his aggressive tactics, commanded a heavy battlecruiser tasked with defending a major trade route. Vorthai 6, one of the top Vorthak pilots, controlled an entire fighter squadron. Elena's patrol cruiser felt small and vulnerable by comparison. Its weaponry consisted of basic plasma cannons and a single torpedo launcher. The vessel was designed for reconnaissance, not engagement with serious threats. She wondered if the Academy's computer systems had made an error in her assignment. As she guided her virtual ship through the asteroid field, Elena noticed something odd about the distress signal's transmission pattern. The signal contained subtle variations that didn't match standard Alliance emergency protocols. She ran the pattern through her ship's analysis systems, discovering that the variations formed a mathematical sequence, one that matched known hegemony encryption patterns. It was a trap. Elena immediately began scanning the asteroid field with her ship's sensors, searching for hidden enemy vessels. Most cadets would have rushed toward the supposed mining colony, eager to begin combat and rack up elimination scores. But Elena's study of hegemony, psychology had taught her that they preferred ambush tactics over direct confrontation. Her patience was rewarded when her sensors detected unusual electromagnetic signatures from several large asteroids near the colony coordinates. The signatures matched the power output of cloaked hegemony stealth ships. At least 6 enemy vessels were lying in wait, ready to destroy any Alliance ship that responded to the fake distress call. Elena faced a critical decision. Her patrol cruiser couldn't possibly engage 6 enemy ships and survive. Standard protocol would be to withdraw and report the enemy position to Alliance command. but the simulation parameters suggested that retreat would be scored as mission failure. Instead, Elena began analyzing the asteroid field itself. The hegemony ships had chosen their hiding spots well. The asteroids provided excellent cover and multiple escape routes. But Elena noticed something the enemy commanders had overlooked. Several of the larger asteroids contained high concentrations of volatile minerals commonly found in mining operations. Elena modified her ship's torpedo to create a cascading detonation rather than a direct explosive impact. She targeted the largest asteroid containing hegemony vessels, aiming not at the ships themselves, but at the mineral deposits within the rock. When her torpedo struck, it triggered a chain reaction that caused the entire asteroid to explode, exposing the hidden enemy ships and damaging their cloaking systems. The hegemony vessels, suddenly visible and disoriented, began firing wildly as they tried to re-establish their concealment. Elena used their confusion to her advantage, maneuvering her smaller ship through the debris field while targeting the enemy vessels one by one. Her patrol cruiser's limited weaponry proved sufficient when combined with the environmental hazards she had created. Within 20 minutes, Elena had eliminated all 6 enemy ships while sustaining minimal damage to her own vessel. She had completed the scenario using tactics that none of her instructors had anticipated. When Elena emerged from her simulation pod, she noticed that most other cadets were still engaged in their scenarios. The few who had finished earlier looked frustrated or defeated. She checked the status board and realized that her completion time was the fastest recorded so far, and her success rate was perfect. Commander Thexmol approached her station with an expression that Elena couldn't interpret. His crystalline features reflected the glow from nearby displays as he accessed her simulation data. "Cadet Martinez," he said slowly, "your tactical approach was unconventional. The scenario was designed as a direct combat exercise, not a demolitions demonstration." Elena felt her heart sink. Had she misunderstood the mission parameters? "Sir, I identified the tactical situation as an ambush scenario and responded accordingly. The enemy vessels were eliminated through strategic use of environmental factors." Thexmol studied her data for several more moments. "Indeed, your methodology was effective, though not what we expected from this particular simulation." He paused, and Elena detected what might have been approval in his harmonic voice. However, effectiveness is ultimately what matters in actual combat situations. Word of Elena's unexpected success spread quickly through the cadet population. During the evening meal period, she found herself the subject of curious stares and whispered conversations. Most of her classmates seemed surprised that the quiet human cadet had outperformed the more prestigious tactical candidates. Corzan Thiel, the Kralith cadet who had commanded the heavy battle cruiser, approached Elena's table during dinner. His massive crystalline frame cast shadows over the smaller seating area as he studied her with multifaceted eyes. "Human," he said, his harmonic voice carrying a note of challenge. "I reviewed your simulation results. You achieved victory through destruction of environmental elements rather than direct combat prowess. This approach would not be possible in open space engagements." Elena looked up at the towering cadet, aware that many others were listening to their conversation. "Every tactical situation is different," she replied calmly. "The key is adapting your strategy to the specific circumstances rather than relying on standard approaches." Corzan's crystalline features shifted, and what Elena had learned was equivalent to a dismissive gesture among his species. "Clever tricks may work once or twice, but true military capability requires mastery of fundamental combat principles. Your success today was fortunate coincidence, nothing more." Elena didn't argue further, but she noticed that several other cadets were nodding in agreement with Corzan's assessment. Despite her successful performance, many still viewed her achievement as lucky improvisation rather than genuine tactical skill. That night, Elena received a priority message through her personal communication terminal. The sender was Admiral Korath himself, requesting her presence in his office the following morning. Elena read the message 3 times, trying to determine whether she was being summoned for commendation or disciplinary action. She spent the night reviewing military regulations and academy protocols, preparing for whatever conversation awaited her. Despite her simulation success, Elena couldn't shake the feeling that her unconventional approach had somehow violated expected norms. The Galactic Defense Academy valued order and predictability above all else, and her improvised tactics might be seen as dangerous unpredictability. As she finally drifted off to sleep, Elena wondered if tomorrow would bring the end of her military career or the beginning of something entirely unexpected. Admiral Korath's office occupied the highest level of Station Kepler 442, with transparent aluminum windows offering a stunning view of the surrounding starfield. Elena had never been in the Admiral's private chambers before, and the grandeur of the space made her feel even smaller than usual. The Admiral's massive Gorvani frame dominated the room as he reviewed holographic displays showing fleet movements throughout Alliance space. His thick armored hide bore scars from decades of military service, and his deep-set eyes held the weight of command decisions that affected billions of lives. Cadet Martinez, Admiral Korath rumbled as Elena entered and stood at attention. Your performance in yesterday's tactical simulation has attracted considerable attention from my staff. Elena maintained her rigid posture, unsure whether this attention was positive or negative. Sir, I followed mission parameters to the best of my ability. The Admiral gestured toward a chair designed for smaller species. As Elena sat, he activated a holographic display showing her simulation performance from multiple angles. Elena watched herself guide the patrol cruiser through the asteroid field, target the mineral deposits, and systematically eliminate the enemy vessels. Commander Thexmol believes your approach demonstrates innovative thinking under pressure, the Admiral continued. However, several other instructors worry that your methods indicate a dangerous disregard for established tactical doctrine. Elena felt her throat tighten. Sir, I analyzed the situation and chose the strategy most likely to achieve mission success given my vessel's limitations. Admiral Korath's expression was unreadable as he studied Elena's simulation data. Indeed, that is precisely what concerns some members of my staff. Most cadets in your situation would have attempted direct engagement despite being outnumbered 6-1. The expected outcome would have been rapid elimination, but the attempt would have demonstrated adherence to standard combat protocols. The Admiral moved to the observation windows, his reflection creating a double image against the star field. Tell me, Cadet Martinez, what do you know about the current strategic situation facing the Alliance? Elena had studied recent intelligence reports as part of her coursework. Sir, long-range reconnaissance indicates significant hegemony fleet buildup in the Outer Rim territories. Intelligence estimates suggest they may be preparing for a major offensive operation. Correct. What our intelligence reports do not reveal is the timeline for this offensive. Admiral Korath turned back toward Elena, his scarred features grave. We have received classified information suggesting the hegemony plans to move within the next 72 hours. Elena felt a chill run down her spine. Active warfare hadn't occurred in Alliance space for over 30 years. Most current military personnel had never experienced actual combat beyond training exercises. The hegemony's target appears to be the sanctuary system, the Admiral continued. They likely believe that capturing our primary research and development facilities will cripple the Alliance's technological advantages. Elena knew about Sanctuary. It was home to the galaxy's most advanced scientific installations and served as headquarters for the Alliance's strategic research programs. Loss of Sanctuary would indeed represent a devastating blow to Alliance capabilities. Sir, what does this mean for the Academy? Admiral Korath activated another holographic display, this one showing the current deployment of Alliance forces. Elena could see that most fleet assets were stationed at major population centers and trade routes, leaving the Outer Rim territories relatively undefended. The Alliance High Command has made a difficult decision, the Admiral said. All available military assets, including advanced training vessels from this academy, are being deployed to defend Sanctuary. This represents an unprecedented mobilization of our forces. Elena's heart began racing as she realized the implications. Sir, are you saying that cadets will be involved in actual combat operations? Final-year cadets with exceptional performance records will be assigned to support roles aboard active duty vessels. The remainder will continue their training under accelerated conditions here at the Academy. Admiral Korath paused, studying Elena carefully. However, your unique approach to tactical problems has caught the attention of fleet intelligence. Elena wasn't sure how to respond to this statement. Fleet intelligence was responsible for gathering information about enemy capabilities and intentions. not exactly a role she had considered. For her future career, the Admiral activated a secure communication terminal, and Elena was surprised to see the face of Captain Sarah Chen, one of the few human officers serving at senior levels within the Alliance command structure. Elena had read about Captain Chen during her studies. She commanded the exploration vessel UAS Discovery and had been instrumental in several first contact scenarios. Cadet Martinez, Captain Chen said through the hologram, Admiral Korath has forwarded your simulation performance to my attention. Your tactical approach suggests the kind of adaptive thinking that intelligence operations require. Elena found her voice. Thank you, ma'am, but I'm not sure I understand what you're asking of me. Captain Chen's expression became serious. We have reason to believe that the hegemony's attack on Sanctuary will include tactics and technologies that our current strategic models cannot predict. Their species have been developing new approaches to warfare during their decades of isolation. Intelligence needs officers capable of thinking beyond established parameters. Admiral Korath added, Your simulation performance suggests you possess this capability. Elena felt overwhelmed by the sudden attention and responsibility being placed on her shoulders. Sir, I'm just a first-year cadet. I don't have the experience or training for intelligence operations. Experience can be gained quickly in crisis situations, Captain Chen replied. What cannot be taught is the ability to see solutions that others miss. Your asteroid field tactics demonstrated exactly this type of innovative thinking. Admiral Korath moved to his desk and retrieved a sealed data packet. Cadet Martinez, you are being temporarily reassigned to Intelligence Division for specialized training. This assignment will begin immediately and continue until the current crisis is resolved. Elena accepted the data packet with shaking hands. Inside, she found new identification credentials, security clearances, and orders to report to the Intelligence Division within 2 hours. Sir, I have to ask, why me? There are cadets here with much better performance records and more advanced training. Admiral Korath's expression softened slightly. Cadet Martinez, in my 40 years of military service, I have learned that the most valuable officers are often those who approach problems from unexpected angles. Your species may be physically inferior to most Alliance races, but you have demonstrated something far more valuable, the ability to adapt and overcome limitations through creative thinking. As Elena prepared to leave the Admiral's office, Captain Chen's hologram flickered back to life. Cadet, there's something else you should know. The hegemony has been specifically targeting human personnel in their recent intelligence operations. They appear to view your species as a particular threat, despite humanity's relatively recent admission to the Alliance. Elena paused at the door, processing this information. Ma'am, why would they consider humans threatening? Captain Chen's expression was grim. That's exactly what we need to find out. Your reassignment to intelligence isn't just about your tactical abilities, Cadet Martinez. It's about understanding why the enemy fears humanity enough to specifically target us for elimination. As Elena left the Admiral's office, her mind raced with questions about what lay ahead. Within hours, she would be leaving the familiar environment of the Academy for specialized intelligence training. The quiet cadet who had struggled to keep up with her classmates was about to be thrust into the center of the Alliance's most critical military operation. The Intelligence Division occupied a restricted section of Station Kepler 442 that Elena had never seen before. Security checkpoints scanned her new credentials multiple times before allowing access to the classified areas. The corridors here felt different, quieter, with a sense of urgency that permeated every conversation and data terminal. Commander Yaxith, a slender Vorthak officer with cybernetic implants covering half her head, greeted Elena at the division entrance. Her forearms moved independently as she processed multiple data streams simultaneously, while her modified eyes glowed with enhanced processing capabilities. Cadet Martinez, I am your training supervisor for the Accelerated Intelligence Program. You have 36 hours to master techniques that normally require months of study. Commander Yaxith's translated voice carried no emotion, but Elena sensed the importance of her assignment in the officer's rapid movements. Elena's first lesson involved advanced enemy analysis techniques. She learned to interpret communication patterns, behavioral indicators, and strategic preferences of various hegemony species. The information was overwhelming. Psychological profiles, tactical doctrines, and technological capabilities that painted a picture of an enemy far more sophisticated than Alliance intelligence had previously believed. The Kragan Empire formed the core of the hegemony, a reptilian species, known for their methodical approach to warfare and their ability to plan operations across multiple decades. Supporting them were the Nexari, insectoid beings whose hive-mind intelligence could coordinate complex strategies with perfect synchronization. The third major faction consisted of the Zephyrians, energy-based entities whose motivations remained largely mysterious to Alliance analysts. Your human perspective may provide insights that our traditional analysis has missed, Commander Yaxith explained as Elena studied enemy behavioral patterns. Each species brings their own cognitive biases to intelligence work. Perhaps human intuition will reveal patterns that logical analysis has overlooked. Elena spent the next 18 hours immersed in classified data about recent hegemony activities. She analyzed communication intercepts, studied reconnaissance footage, and reviewed reports from deep-cover intelligence operatives. Gradually, a disturbing pattern began to emerge. The hegemony's recent operations showed an unusual interest in human settlements and installations. They had conducted reconnaissance missions against human colonies that held little strategic value, intercepted communications from human merchants and diplomats, and specifically targeted human personnel during raids on mixed-species facilities. "Commander," Elena said during her analysis briefing, "I think the hegemony is studying us." Commander Yaxith's cybernetic implants flickered as she processed Elena's observation. "Explain your reasoning." Elena activated a holographic display showing the pattern of hegemony activities over the past year. "Look at these reconnaissance missions. They're not targeting our military installations or industrial centers. They're studying human behavior, social structures, and decision-making processes." The Vorthak commander's forearms paused their constant motion as she examined Elena's analysis. "This is troubling. Why would they invest such resources in studying a species they consider militarily insignificant?" Elena had been wondering the same thing. Her research had revealed that most Alliance species viewed humanity as brave, but ultimately limited in military potential. Human ships were adequate but not exceptional. Human soldiers were determined but physically inferior. Human technology was competent but not innovative. Yet the hegemony seemed to view humanity differently. Elena's breakthrough came during her final training session, when she was analyzing a recently intercepted hegemony communication. The message was heavily encrypted, but Alliance codebreakers had managed to decrypt portions of the transmission. Most of the content dealt with fleet movements and supply logistics, but one section caught Elena's attention. The message contained references to adaptive anomaly patterns and unpredictable solution generation in connection with human military personnel. Elena cross-referenced these terms with other intelligence reports and discovered that the hegemony had been tracking instances where human officers had achieved unexpected victories through unconventional tactics. "They're not studying our weaknesses," Elena realized aloud. "They're trying to understand our adaptability." Commander Yaxith's enhanced eyes focused on Elena with new intensity. "Elaborate." Elena pulled up historical records of human military encounters, both within Alliance service and during humanity's pre-spaceflight conflicts. Every other species in the Alliance has evolved specialized advantages. The Kraelith are natural warriors. The Vorthak are natural pilots. The Gorvani are natural engineers. But humans are generalists. "This is well documented," the commander replied. "Human versatility is considered a minor advantage offset by lack of specialized capabilities. But what if versatility is actually humanity's greatest strength?" Elena continued, her excitement growing as the pattern became clearer. "We don't have predetermined approaches to problems. When faced with impossible situations, humans don't follow standard protocols. We improvise." Elena activated her tactical simulation from the previous week, highlighting her unconventional use of asteroid environments. Every other species would have attempted direct engagement, because that's how their military doctrines define combat. But I saw the asteroids as weapons because humans don't limit themselves to predetermined solutions. Commander Yaxith's cybernetic implants processed Elena's analysis at superhuman speed. "You believe the hegemony considers human unpredictability a significant threat to their strategic planning?" "More than that," Elena said, feeling pieces of the puzzle clicking into place. "The hegemony's entire military philosophy is based on predictable patterns. They study enemy capabilities and develop countermeasures over extended periods. But they can't develop countermeasures against unpredictable adaptation. Elena pulled up the intercepted communication again, pointing to a section that had puzzled Alliance translators. Look at this phrase, Chaos Variable Introduction. I think they're referring to human influence on Alliance tactical doctrine. The implications were staggering. If Elena's analysis was correct, the hegemony viewed humanity not as a weak link in Alliance defenses, but as a chaotic element that could disrupt their carefully planned strategies. This would explain their focused intelligence gathering on human personnel and their apparent urgency in launching their offensive. Cadet Martinez, Commander Yaxith said slowly, if your assessment is accurate, then the hegemony's attack on Sanctuary may be specifically designed to eliminate human influence on Alliance strategic thinking. Elena felt a chill as she realized the full scope of the enemy's intentions. They're not just trying to capture our research facilities. They're trying to remove the one factor they can't predict or counter: human adaptability. Commander, Yaxith immediately activated a priority communication channel to Admiral Karath and Captain Chen. Within minutes, Elena found herself briefing senior Alliance officers on her analysis of hegemony motivations and strategies. This changes everything, Captain Chen said through the secure hologram. If the enemy specifically fears human tactical influence, then our response must emphasize exactly that capability. Admiral Korath's expression was grave as he processed the implications. Cadet Martinez, your analysis suggests that the upcoming battle will determine not just the fate of Sanctuary, but the future of human participation in Alliance military operations. Elena felt the weight of responsibility settling on her shoulders once again. Her unique perspective had uncovered the true nature of the enemy's strategy. But now she would need to help develop countermeasures against an enemy that specifically sought to neutralize humanity's greatest strength, the ability to find unexpected solutions when conventional approaches failed. Elena's analysis reached Alliance High Command just 18 hours before the hegemony fleet emerged from hyperspace at the edge of the Sanctuary system. The enemy force was massive, over 300 capital ships supported by thousands of smaller vessels, representing the largest military operation in galactic history. Elena found herself aboard the UAS Discovery, Captain Chen's exploration vessel that had been hastily converted for intelligence operations. The ship's advanced sensor arrays and communication systems made it ideal for coordinating Alliance defensive efforts, though its light armament meant it would need to stay well clear of direct combat. Through the Discovery's main view screen, Elena watched the hegemony fleet deploy into attack formations with mechanical precision. The enemy ships moved in perfectly coordinated patterns, each vessel taking its assigned position according to tactical doctrines that had been refined over centuries of warfare. Their formation is flawless, observed Commander Thelon, the Discovery's Vorthak tactical officer. Each ship is positioned to provide maximum mutual support while minimizing vulnerability to our known attack patterns. Captain Chen studied the tactical displays with growing concern. Fleet Admiral Vextar's battle plan assumes the enemy will deploy according to established strategic doctrine, but this formation suggests they've anticipated our response. Elena watched the enemy deployment continue, noting details that seemed to confirm her analysis about hegemony fear of human unpredictability. The enemy formation included unusual defensive measures around what appeared to be command vessels, not protection against Alliance weapons, but against unexpected tactical approaches. Captain, Elena said, I think they're specifically defending against human-influenced strategies. Look at their escort patterns around the command ships. They've created multiple redundant, defensive layers that would prevent the kind of small ship infiltration tactics that humans might attempt. Captain Chen activated a communication channel to the Alliance fleet commanders. Admiral Vextar, this is Discovery. Our intelligence analysis suggests the enemy formation is designed to counter unconventional tactical approaches. Request permission to recommend alternative strategies. The response from Fleet Admiral Vextar's flagship was immediate and dismissive. Discovery, maintain your designated position and continue intelligence gathering. Fleet tactical operations will proceed according to established doctrine. Elena watched in growing alarm as the Alliance fleet moved into standard battle formations. She could see that the human ships were being assigned to supporting positions rather than frontline combat roles. Exactly what the hegemony would have expected based on their intelligence gathering. The first phase of the battle began with long-range artillery exchanges between the opposing fleets. Alliance plasma cannons targeted hegemony shields, while enemy particle beams responded with devastating accuracy. Both sides had fought preliminary engagements like this before, and the exchange followed predictable patterns. But Elena noticed something disturbing in the enemy's response patterns. Their return fire was too accurate, their tactical adjustments too perfect. They were responding to Alliance maneuvers before the orders were even transmitted to the fleet. "Captain, they're predicting our moves," Elena reported urgently. "Look at their targeting patterns. They're firing at positions our ships haven't reached yet." Captain Chen studied the tactical data, and her expression darkened. "They've broken our tactical communications. The enemy is reading our battle plans in real time." This was worse than Elena had feared. The hegemony had not only anticipated Alliance strategic doctrine, they had compromised the communication systems that allowed fleet coordination. Without secure communications, the Alliance fleet would be unable to coordinate complex maneuvers or adapt to changing battlefield conditions. Elena's mind raced as she considered the implications. Standard Alliance tactical doctrine depended on precise coordination between multiple ship classes, with each vessel playing a specific role in carefully orchestrated battle plans. But if the enemy could read those plans in advance, conventional tactics would be useless. "We need to communicate with the fleet without using standard channels," Elena said urgently. "Is there a way to send tactical suggestions directly to individual ship commanders?" Captain Chen's eyes lit up with understanding. "The emergency beacon system. It's designed for short-range distress signals, but we could modify it to send tactical data." Elena was already working at her console, analyzing the current battle situation for opportunities that Alliance commanders might have missed. The hegemony fleet's perfect coordination had created an unexpected vulnerability. Their formation was so rigid that they couldn't adapt quickly to truly unexpected changes. "There," Elena said, highlighting a section of the enemy formation. "The hegemony command ships are positioned to provide optimal oversight of their fleet, but that puts them in a perfect position for a coordinated strike from multiple directions." Captain Chen studied Elena's analysis. That would require simultaneous attacks from at least 6 different ship groups, all perfectly timed. Without secure communications, it's impossible to coordinate such a complex maneuver. Elena smiled for the first time since the battle began. "Not if we don't try to coordinate it in advance. Look at the human ship positions. They're scattered throughout the Alliance fleet in supporting roles. If each human commander acts independently based on the same tactical assessment, they could achieve coordination through parallel thinking rather than communication. It was a uniquely human solution, relying on individual adaptation and intuitive decision-making rather than rigid command structures." Elena quickly coded her tactical analysis into the emergency beacon system and began transmitting to every human crewed vessel in the Alliance fleet. The response was immediate and chaotic. Human ship commanders began breaking formation and moving toward the positions Elena had identified, each acting on their own interpretation of her tactical suggestion. To outside observers, it looked like random confusion rather than coordinated strategy. The hegemony fleet's predictive systems couldn't process what they were seeing. Alliance ships were moving in patterns that violated all established tactical doctrine, taking positions that made no sense according to conventional military analysis. The enemy's perfect formation began to waver as commanders struggled to respond to actions they couldn't predict. Elena watched with growing excitement as the human ships reached their positions around the hegemony command vessels. Each captain had interpreted her suggestions differently, but all had arrived at essentially the same tactical solution. They were now positioned for a devastating coordinated strike that the enemy hadn't seen coming. "All human vessels, fire on designated targets," Captain Chen broadcast on the emergency beacon frequency. The result was spectacular. Plasma fire from 6 different directions converged on the hegemony command ships simultaneously, overwhelming their shields and crippling their coordination systems. The enemy fleet's perfect formation collapsed as individual ship commanders lost contact with their strategic oversight. But the battle was far from over. The hegemony had committed enormous resources to this offensive, and they began adapting to the loss of their command structure. Individual ship groups started operating independently, using their superior numbers to overwhelm isolated Alliance vessels. Elena realized that her tactical innovation had bought the Alliance a temporary advantage, but the enemy would soon develop countermeasures. The battle would ultimately be decided by humanity's ability to continue adapting faster than the hegemony could respond. "Captain," Elena said, studying the evolving battle situation, "we need to make this personal. The hegemony fears human unpredictability, but they're still thinking in terms of fleet actions and strategic doctrine. What if we take this down to individual ship encounters?" Captain Chen looked intrigued. "What do you mean?" Elena pointed to the tactical display where numerous small-scale engagements were developing between individual ships from both sides. "Every human commander in this battle is going to face impossible odds and find their own solution. If we can coordinate their individual adaptations without constraining their creativity, we can create a level of battlefield chaos that the enemy simply cannot process." It was time to find out whether humanity's greatest strength could overcome the galaxy's most sophisticated military machine. Elena's radical approach to coordinated chaos proved more effective than anyone had dared hope. Across the battlefield, human commanders found themselves in impossible situations and responded with solutions that defied all military logic. The emergency beacon network allowed them to share successful innovations instantly, creating a feedback loop of adaptive tactics. "Commander, Liu aboard the UAS Resilience discovered that his ship's mining laser, normally used for asteroid operations, could slice through hegemony armor more effectively than conventional weapons. Within minutes, every human ship with industrial equipment was retargeting their tools as improvised weapons, Captain. Okafor of the UAS Endeavour found that her ship's atmospheric processors could create dense interference clouds that scrambled enemy targeting systems. Soon, a dozen human vessels were using environmental systems as defensive countermeasures, turning the space around Sanctuary into a maze of sensor-disrupting phenomena. The hegemony fleet's sophisticated tactical computers couldn't process the cascade of unexpected innovations. Their predictive algorithms were designed to analyze conventional military strategies, not improvise solutions using civilian equipment. Enemy formation discipline began breaking down as individual commanders struggled to respond to threats they had never encountered in their strategic planning. Elena monitored the battle's progression from her position aboard the Discovery, coordinating information flow between human vessels, while Captain Chen managed fleet-wide intelligence gathering. What amazed Elena most was how quickly human innovations spread through their limited communication network. A successful tactic discovered by one ship would be adapted and modified by dozens of others within minutes. "Elena," Captain Chen called from the tactical station, "we're receiving priority communications from Alliance High Command. Fleet Admiral Vextar wants to know what's happening out there." Elena looked at the tactical display, where conventional battle lines had dissolved into dozens of individual encounters, each following its own unique pattern. "Tell the Admiral that humanity is doing what we do best, solving impossible problems one crisis at a time." The turning point came when the hegemony fleet attempted to fall back to more conventional tactical formations. Their commanders tried to reorganize their forces into the rigid structures that had served them well for centuries. But they found that human ships had infiltrated their formations during the chaotic fighting. Elena realized the opportunity immediately. "Captain, the enemy is trying to re-establish command control, but they've got human vessels scattered throughout their formations. If we can coordinate one massive simultaneous action," Captain Chen understood immediately. She activated the emergency beacon network and transmitted a simple message to all human ships. Maximum impact, 30 seconds. What happened next would be studied in military academies for generations. Every human ship in the hegemony formation acted simultaneously, but each chose a completely different approach to maximizing damage. Some targeted command systems, others focused on propulsion, still others aimed for weapons arrays. Several ships actually rammed enemy vessels after evacuating their crews to escape pods. The coordinated diversity of the human response created cascading failures throughout the hegemony fleet. Enemy ships found themselves dealing with multiple unrelated crises simultaneously. Command systems failed while propulsion systems malfunctioned, while weapons systems overloaded. The psychological impact on enemy crews was devastating. They couldn't understand how the Alliance had developed such sophisticated multi-vector attack strategies, but the most remarkable aspect of the battle was being recorded by the Discovery's advanced sensor arrays. Captain Chen had been documenting the entire engagement for post-battle analysis, but she realized that the footage would serve a much more important purpose. "Elena," Captain Chen said with growing excitement, "are you seeing what our sensors are picking up?" Elena looked at the data feeds and gasped. The Discovery's sensors were designed to monitor multiple species simultaneously, and they were detecting something unprecedented. Every human ship in the battle was exhibiting the same pattern: rapid adaptation to impossible circumstances, followed by innovative solutions that violated conventional tactical doctrine. "We're documenting the first recorded example of species-wide tactical adaptation in real time," Elena breathed. "This isn't just a battle. It's proof that human cognitive flexibility represents a new form of military capability." The hegemony fleet was beginning to withdraw, but their retreat was anything but orderly. Enemy commanders were so confused by human tactical innovations that they couldn't determine which alliance strategies posed the greatest threat. Some enemy ships were fleeing from human vessels armed with nothing more than cargo handling equipment, while others were ignoring dangerous alliance battleships to focus on human exploration vessels. Elena realized that the psychological victory was as important as the tactical one. "Captain, we need to make sure this battle is documented from as many perspectives as possible. The galaxy needs to see what happened here." Captain Chen was already working on that problem. "I'm linking our sensor records with every other Alliance vessel in the system. We'll have complete coverage of the human tactical innovations from multiple viewpoints." As the hegemony fleet completed its withdrawal, Elena found herself staring at the tactical display in amazement. The Battle of Sanctuary had lasted less than 6 hours, but it had fundamentally changed how the galaxy viewed human military potential. More importantly, it had proven Elena's analysis about the hegemony's fear of human unpredictability. The aftermath was equally remarkable. Within hours of the battle's conclusion, sensor records were being transmitted throughout Alliance space. Elena watched as her emergency beacon tactical coordination became the subject of intense analysis by military strategists from dozens of species. But the most significant development came when the records reached civilian networks. The footage of human ships improvising solutions with mining equipment, atmospheric processors, and even cargo handling systems captured the imagination of billions of beings throughout the galaxy. Elena received her first indication of the viral spread when HFY, her former roommate, sent a message from the Academy. "Elena, everyone is talking about the Battle of Sanctuary. The footage of human ships using industrial equipment to defeat advanced warships is being viewed by every cadet in the Academy." Similar messages began arriving from across Alliance space. The battle records were being shared on entertainment networks, analyzed on educational programs, and discussed in diplomatic conferences. Elena's tactical innovations had become the focal point of a galaxy-wide conversation about human capabilities. The most surprising response came from other species' military organizations. Kralith war colleges were incorporating human tactical case studies into their curricula. Vorthak flight academies were teaching pilots about adaptive problem-solving. Even the methodical Gorvani were analyzing human improvisation techniques for potential applications in engineering challenges. "Elena," Captain Chen said as she reviewed communication traffic from throughout the galaxy, "I think you've achieved something unprecedented. You've changed how an entire galaxy thinks about humanity." Elena looked at the messages pouring in from across Alliance space. "Congratulations. Analysis requests, interview invitations, and study proposals." The quiet cadet who had struggled to keep up with her classmates had somehow become the symbol of humanity's unique contribution to galactic civilization. But perhaps the most important message came from Admiral Korath. Back at the Academy, "Cadet Martinez, your tactical innovations have been designated as classified strategic assets. Report to Alliance High Command for immediate promotion and assignment to the newly created Department of Adaptive Warfare." Elena realized that her life had changed forever. She was no longer the unseen cadet struggling to prove herself worthy of a military career. She had become living proof that humanity's greatest weakness, their lack of specialized advantages, was actually their greatest strength in an unpredictable universe. 3 months after the Battle of Sanctuary, Elena found herself standing in the main assembly hall of Alliance High Command, wearing the uniform of a newly commissioned lieutenant in the Alliance Intelligence Service. The ceremony hall was packed with representatives from every member species, all gathered to witness the formal establishment of the Department of Adaptive Warfare. Admiral Korath, now promoted to Supreme Allied Commander, stood at the podium addressing the assembled dignitaries. The Battle of Sanctuary demonstrated that our understanding of military capability was fundamentally flawed. We had categorized species by their specialized advantages while overlooking the strategic value of adaptability itself. Elena watched from the front row as holographic displays showed edited highlights from the battle. The footage had been viewed over 10 billion times across the galaxy, making it the most watched military engagement in recorded history. What struck Elena most was how the editing emphasized not individual heroics, but the collective pattern of human adaptation under pressure. The ceremony was being broadcast live throughout Alliance space, and Elena knew that billions of beings were watching as the galaxy formally acknowledged humanity's unique military contribution. It was a transformation she could never have imagined during her difficult early months at the Academy. "Lieutenant Martinez," Admiral Korath called, "please join me at the podium." Elena walked across the stage, still somewhat overwhelmed by the attention focused on her. 6 months ago, she had been the quiet human cadet that most of her classmates barely noticed. Now she was being introduced as the architect of humanity's most significant military innovation. Lieutenant Martinez's analysis of enemy motivations proved crucial to Alliance victory at Sanctuary, Admiral Korath continued. But more importantly, her tactical coordination methods have revolutionized our approach to military planning. The Department of Adaptive Warfare will study and develop these methods for implementation throughout Alliance forces. Elena stepped to the microphone, looking out at an audience that included some of the most powerful military and political leaders in the galaxy. Representatives from species that had considered humanity militarily insignificant now listened to her words with respectful attention. 6 months ago, I was told that humans were too weak, too slow, and too short-lived to excel in military service, Elena began. Those assessments were correct by traditional measurements, but the Battle of Sanctuary proved that military effectiveness cannot be measured by physical advantages alone. Elena activated a holographic display showing comparative tactical analyses from various species. The Kralith excel at direct confrontation because their physiology and psychology are optimized for warrior traditions. The Vorthak dominate aerospace combat because their sensory systems and reflexes are naturally suited to flight operations. Every Alliance species brings specialized capabilities to military service. Humanity's specialization is the absence of specialization, Elena continued. We are cognitive generalists who approach problems without predetermined solutions. When faced with impossible situations, other species apply their specialized advantages more intensively. Humans change the fundamental nature of the problem. The audience responded with respectful attention, and Elena could see understanding in their expressions. The Battle of Sanctuary had provided concrete proof of her assertions, making theoretical arguments unnecessary. The Department of Adaptive Warfare will not attempt to teach other species to think like humans, Elena explained. Instead, we will develop methods for integrating human adaptive capabilities with existing Alliance tactical doctrine. Our goal is to create military strategies that combine specialized advantages with adaptive flexibility. Admiral Korath returned to the podium as Elena concluded her remarks. The Alliance faces an uncertain future. The hegemony's defeat at Sanctuary was significant, but they remain a formidable threat. Our victory was achieved through tactical innovation, but future conflicts will require continued adaptation to new challenges. Lieutenant Martinez will lead a team of specialists from multiple species in developing adaptive warfare techniques. This represents a fundamental shift in Alliance military philosophy, from relying solely on proven methods to embracing controlled innovation as a strategic advantage. As the ceremony concluded, Elena was approached by a steady stream of military officers, diplomatic representatives, and academic researchers. Everyone wanted to discuss the implications of adaptive warfare, or request human participation in their own military programs. Commander Thexmol, Elena's former tactical instructor from the academy, waited until the crowd had dispersed before approaching her. His crystalline features reflected the ceremonial lighting as he spoke. "Lieutenant Martinez," he said, his harmonic voice carrying notes Elena had learned to recognize as respectful acknowledgement. "I must admit that your performance has exceeded all expectations. When you first arrived at the academy, I believed human physiology made your species unsuited for military excellence." Elena smiled at her former instructor. "Commander, you weren't wrong about human physical limitations. But you taught me that true military success requires more than physical capability." "Indeed," Thexmol replied. "Your tactical simulation performance demonstrated problem-solving abilities that our standard evaluation methods failed to recognize. The Academy is redesigning its assessment protocols to identify adaptive capability alongside traditional military skills." Elena was pleased to learn that her experience would help future cadets who might possess valuable abilities not captured by conventional testing. The Academy had already announced plans to recruit human instructors for new courses in adaptive tactics and innovative problem-solving. Later that evening, Elena received a priority message from Captain Chen, who was now commanding the Alliance's first dedicated intelligence-gathering vessel. The message contained footage from recent reconnaissance missions that showed remarkable developments throughout Alliance space. Human military advisors were being requested by planets throughout the Alliance. Species that had never shown interest in human culture were establishing exchange programs with Earth's military academies. Most surprisingly, several former hegemony member species were requesting asylum in Alliance space, specifically citing their desire to learn human adaptive techniques. The viral spread of battle footage had created effects that extended far beyond military applications. Human engineering teams were being recruited for projects throughout the galaxy, not because of superior technology, but because of their ability to improvise solutions using available resources. Human diplomatic corps were finding new respect for their ability to navigate complex, multi-species negotiations by adapting to unexpected cultural factors. Elena's personal communication terminal showed hundreds of messages from across the galaxy, interview requests from galactic media networks, research collaboration proposals from academic institutions, and personal messages from individuals who had been inspired by the Battle of Sanctuary footage. One message particularly caught her attention. It was from Corzan Thiel, the Kralith cadet who had dismissed her tactical simulation success as clever tricks. His message was brief but significant. "Lieutenant Martinez, I have requested assignment to the Department of Adaptive Warfare. I would like to learn how clever tricks become strategic advantages." Elena smiled as she realized the transformation was not limited to her own circumstances. The Battle of Sanctuary had changed how the entire galaxy viewed the relationship between individual capability and collective strength. Specialization remained important, but adaptation had been recognized as equally valuable. As she prepared for her first day as head of the Department of Adaptive Warfare, Elena reflected on the journey from unseen cadet to galactic recognition. The quiet human who had struggled to keep up with her classmates had become the symbol of humanity's unique contribution to galactic civilization. But perhaps most importantly, Elena had proven that being different was not the same as being deficient. Humanity's lack of specialized advantages had made them generalists capable of finding solutions that specialists would never consider. In a galaxy filled with impossible challenges, that capability had proven to be humanity's greatest gift to the stars. The unseen cadet had finally been seen, not just by her immediate colleagues, but by billions of beings across the galaxy, who now understood that sometimes the greatest strength comes from the ability to adapt when conventional approaches fail.